everyone, this is Raptorial, and I'm here to talk with you about the Kilauea Eruption in Hawaii, and the lava flows that are currently making their way down slope, burning away forests and homes as they come. Now, before I go any further, let me report to you all that my Realist Ecology project now has a blog address and is on its way to being up and running. As soon as it is, I will be working on writing a series of articles and creating a podcast series, plus continuing to make YouTube videos discussing environmental issues all over the world. So first, for now, let's talk a little bit about what Hawaii is, geologically speaking. It's a very interesting place. Hawaii lies over a hotspot, which is a location on the Earth's crust where, for reasons still not well understood, magma rises to the surface. Most volcanoes are created where tectonic plates collide and one plate is subducted under another plate, and magma, or volcanoes, are pushed up by the stress and pressure on the crust and magma, erupting on the surface, and the violence and scale of eruptions is largely determined by the nature of the magma, the type of rock that is molten, the fluidity or stickiness of the magma, and a number of other factors that vary depending on what's going on. The Hawaiian Islands lie in the middle of the Pacific Plate, which is one of the largest tectonic plates on Earth. It is thousands of miles away from the edge of the Ring of Fire. What happens is that this mantle plume, this hotspot, is stationary. The volcanic vents stay where they are, but because they are relatively gentle volcanoes that spew forth new land, the mountains build up as the lava flows cool, eventually breaking the water's surface and forming islands. The Pacific Plate, as it moves west, eventually moves the islands away from the volcanic hotspot, where now erosion begins to wear them down, and without the source of any new land forming, the islands shrink and, in time, sink back into the ocean. Here is the path of the lava flow down the slope of the southeastern flank of Hawaii. You can see here Pahoa, which is threatened, and Leilani Estates, where the people are now really just living hour to hour, is right on the tip of that, it's right on the eastern tip there at the end of the East Rift. It's been over a full week now since the flows began, and there have been a few considerable scares, along with the fact that there's nothing that can be done about a river of molten rock headed towards your house. The lava flow was headed towards a geothermal power plant, the Puna Geothermal Venture, an electric plant that was stacked with pentane, a volatile flammable liquid that is often used as a laboratory solvent but can be used to produce heat energy. The threat that the steam from fissures opening up, releasing steam, and the volcanic gas, or the lava flows themselves, reaching the plant and causing a massive explosion was a huge scare this week. The pentane has of now been completely removed to where I have not been able to find out yet, but it's looking like now the Kilauea volcano itself may explode. Here is a very recent, just hours old picture. Already experts say that if it does explode, as it might, it could hurl boulders the size of refrigerators miles into the air, and they could land miles away. In the article titled, "Volcano Explosion Won't Be Deadly If People Stay Out of Park," quoting from Charles Mandeville, Volcano Hazards Coordinator for the U.S. Geological Survey, says, referring to the boulders and magma injected in such a volcano explosion that is looking like it might happen. If it goes up, it will come down. Or just generally, what goes up will come down. You don't want to be underneath anything that weighs 10 tons when it's coming out at 120 miles per hour, or 193 kilometers per hour. I'm not sure you want to be under anything that weighs even 100 pounds. I mean, just the violence of volcanic eruptions, even relatively moderate ones, is beyond anything most people have ever experienced. The added threat of an explosive eruption could ground planes at one of the Big Island's two major airports and pose other dangers. The national park around the volcano announced that it would close indefinitely starting 10 p.m. Thursday because of the risks. So, the Volcano National Park in Hawaii has closed. They say indefinitely. I don't know if that means indefinitely forever, but certainly very dangerous for the visible future. And also, the volcanic gas and ash can certainly ground planes, which means there's a limited window of which to evacuate. Quoting from Mandeville again, "We know the volcano is capable of doing this." Citing similar explosions at Kilauea in 1925, 1790, and 4 other times in the last few thousand years. "We know it is a distinct possibility." He would not estimate the likelihood of such an explosion, but said the internal volcanic conditions are changing in a way that could lead to a blast in about a week. So the article's title of "Volcano Explosion Won't Be Deadly If People Stay At a Park" no longer seems entirely certain, does it? But that's the nature of volcanology. Not only is this Kilauea eruption, the events and the story constantly changing. I'm looking at it every single day that it's been unfolding, and each day it's different. These volcanoes are working on such a scale, not only in size but in time, and what exactly happens with each one, that all we can make are best guesses based on the volcano's history, how the events unfold, what we think is happening in the structure, what instruments and models can tell us. But it's a limited range of certainty. And unfortunately, it's one of those sciences where it's difficult to know what to do all the time, but where a wrong guess can lead to mass destruction, to huge loss, just the nature of what volcanoes are. And this is why the island is considering mass evacuations in the region within range of Kilauea's blast radius, if I might call it that. The eruption has created, even more so now, a state of emergency, and already almost 2,000 residents have evacuated. The region has 15 volcanic vents now spread through the Leilani Estates and Lanipuna Gardens neighborhoods. So, what's interesting is that the lava lake is sinking, and what geologists believe is happening is that the lava is draining into underground channels in this region, and the pressure that both the molten rivers, acting very much like rivers, along with the volcanic gas, which is unfortunately toxic, is pushing the steam, the gas, to the surface, creating the fissures opening up in the ground. If it happens on land, usually not, but there is something that volcanic islands like Hawaii are extremely vulnerable to. If, and this is even scarier, it causes a piece of the island to slide into the ocean, because volcanoes and earthquakes can actually work in tandem, not intentionally, obviously, they're not sentient, but what they can do is gradually spread or crack the island apart, causing a piece to slide into the ocean. A landslide. That will displace so much water that will cause a tsunami, perhaps a gigantic one. If you want a proper scare about those, watch the documentary titled Mega Tsunami, released in the early 2000s. An article from Pacific Business News describes U.S. lawmakers from Hawaii urging President Trump to sign a disaster declaration to pour, effectively, relief effort resources to aiding Hawaii. Quoting from the end of the short article, the Hawaii County and the state have spent more than $400,000 in emergency protective measures for the lava flow and earthquakes in the Kilauea Rift Zone, and it is added that the estimated cost to protect residents over the next 30 days will likely exceed $2.9 million. And that's probably an underestimate, actually. So here we have a situation where American people who are under United States protection, on account of being a state of the nation, appealing for aid in an inescapable and unpreventable emergency. You can't stop a volcano from erupting. And this goes back to points I've made before about a country, really, any country, really has to put the interests and defense of its own citizens first. And here are Americans in dire need of rescue that is going to cost a great deal of resources. And yet, so many people still pretend that the world has infinite resources to spend. We don't. It is a wiser decision to put aside resources, and by resources that means money, transportation, food, water, emergency supplies, and housing, the effort, the labor, and the risk that people who will carry out the relief effort will spend, as well as the scientists and policymakers who work to assess the situation and its handling. We can't keep taking in people from other countries when disasters like this, and like the Southern California wildfires and mudslides that took place just a few months ago, and I have a YouTube video about that, come with enormous costs, not only in efforts to respond to them, but also the environmental losses, among even more than that. It's just the reality. So, I will be continuing to follow the eruption events. You can follow them yourself through the multiple articles always coming out, as well as through the USGS site following the events. I will be posting a written version of my report on my Realist Ecology page when I have that published, likely updated when we have a clearer picture of what ultimately comes to pass from this. Thank you to anyone who watched and listened to this entire presentation. This is Kestrel Raptorial, and I will be returning soon with more stories and more videos. Till then.